We recently treated a question from somebody, and there's a little spinoff we need to address on that. The question was, isn't there any place in Genesis 1 that could fit in billions of years of more time? And the idea that between the first two verses of the Bible, there's something. Well, there's implications in the Hebrew and just the straight reading of Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 that violate that idea. And let me just go ahead and read from Romans 1:20. This hinges on this. You'll see how. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So what things were actually made, Dr. Sharp?
Well, you have some justification to think there might be a gap here if you believe verse 1 indicates that the earth and the heaven was completely physically finished and operable at the time. However, if you go back to Romans 1:20 and you ask yourself the question, for the invisible things of him, that means his eternal attributes from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things made, even his eternal power and Godhead. You go back and look at verse 1 and understand that in the beginning, at the first, Bereshit, at the first, God, Elohim, Bara, created Hashemayim, the heavens, essentially translated in Hebrew spaces, Viha-iritz, and mass, translated in the English earth. So what in fact did God do in verse 1 of the creation week? He created time, he created space, and he created mass. So all the space and all the mass and all the time in the space-mass-time continuum was a part of the objective of Genesis 1:1.
So it doesn't mention animals and plants
No.
and the atmosphere or stars.
No, what we got here are the three dimensions of the universe. It's a tri-universe, three dimensions of the universe. So it was not brought into any form until the Spirit of God moved on the face of the deep. And the Spirit moved on the face of the deep. It means agitated or incubated or fluttered or energized or fertilized, if you please. And so the Spirit moved on the face of the deep and pulled this space-mass-time continuum into an orb. You can see that in the book of Job 26 and Proverbs 8. He actually drew a line on the face of the horizon between light and darkness. So he pulled this amorphous, shapeless space-mass-time continuum into an orb and created an events horizon, created a horizon between light and darkness. And then he identified the light being day and the darkness being night. And of course, he held that in that context with the covenant. So to try to make Genesis 1:1 mean that you've got the entire physical creation of the universe with the earth in place, in operation, is to overreach what in fact God did, in my estimation.
Now I know what you meant by the word fertilized there, as the Spirit of God hovered over the void place. But a lot of people are going to think, oh, well, God put the seeds of evolution into the planet. You meant by fertilize not the seeds of life, but the nutrients that it would need, that kind of fertilizer.
He's working on what he's just created. He's pulling the elements, if you please, the atoms, if you please.
He's bringing together the materials
into molecules, and he's creating the energy necessary, the waves of light and the hearing of sound and electromagnetism, and all these things are coming into place as God pulls the earth into an orb and begins it spinning. And so we realize that this is what's happening in Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, and I do not see anything else there.
I should answer that question once and for all.